So you want to get rid of the pesky bubbles that are showing up in your mixed acrylic paint and ultimately leads to bubbles all over in your acrylic pour, or bubbles like this in your acrylic pours. Nobody wants those. So how do we get rid of them? The simple answer is, for those of you that just want to get straight to the point, stir very slowly for a longer amount of time, and use a bit of water that has very diluted dish soap in it. Now, if that's all you're looking for, thank you very much for coming. Please like the video. That'll help the channel out, and I wish you luck in your acrylic pouring. For those of you that want to go a little more in depth about how I got to that answer, let's take a look. So, I did a bunch of experiments with the pour paint that I have found that gets the most bubbles. And that is glue, which I have here. This is the Craft Smart version of the glue. Glue All does the same type of thing, clear glue. So glue and water and a pigment, a mica powder pigment, seems to give the most bubbles of all of the different pouring mediums and mixtures that I've done. So I took that as my base to do all of my tests on. And what I tested is every form that I've read about or tried to get rid of bubbles. That includes hot water, which I had in this container here. That includes dish soap water. That includes the order in which I mixed them. That includes alcohol. It includes this Liquitex Flow Aid, which lowers the surface tension of the water, which allows bubbles to come to the surface and to pop rather than come to the surface and just sit there. When you lower the surface temperature, you don't have as much strength in the materials that's holding the air in, and therefore the air can break free and pop. That's what lowering the surface tension does. So I just did a bunch of different experiments with all of these items to figure out what worked the best. You can see here, this was by far the best one. There's by far the least amount of bubbles here, followed by probably these two, and then going this way to the other ones. So what I did on each one of these, and I'm going to go from worst to best, the worst one, you can see here, tons of bubbles here, all over the place. This one, I used hot water. I put my mica pigment in, mixed that all up. The mica pigment integrated completely with the water, and then I added glue and mixed. And look what the hot water did for me. It made lots of bubbles. That was horrible. The next one I tried is I put my glue in first, then put my mica pigment, mixed those in, and then put cold water in. And I got quite a bit of bubbles from there. That was the exact same thing that I did for this piece that I just poured straight out. Look how many bubbles we have in there. That's not what we want in a pour. Unless we're looking for cells and a lot of activity, then this would be okay. But if you're doing a ring pour and you want nice rings, or you're doing a Shelly Art bloom, which was, this is why I wanted to test it, because I want to use my cheap blooms technique with glue for Shelly Art, and I wanted to use mica powder. So that's the whole reason I went on this experiment. And I'll link the description above about how to make the cheapest blooms that I have figured out how to make here in the United States with very inexpensive products. So the next worst one right here is I used glue first, then I added the water, then I added the mica pigment. And I got quite a bit of bubbles in this one too. I was mixing quite vigorously on these first two, and then I tried another where I mixed less vigorously, and I got about the same results. So I don't think the vigorousness of how I mixed affected how bad these were. The next one I tried here is the mica pigment, a little bit of alcohol, a couple of drops of alcohol, then, and this is the distilled isopropyl alcohol here, and then added the glue, and then added the cold water at the end. And I didn't get very many bubbles. I mean, that would be acceptable to me. There's not a whole ton of bubbles there that you can see. Next on the list here, I tried 2 drops of my flow aid, which is supposed to lower the surface tension to allow the paint to move more and supposedly to get rid of bubbles. And it did get rid of quite a few bubbles. I got way less bubbles here. So I did 2 drops of flow aid, my mica pigments, mixed that, then water, mixed that, then glue, mixed that. And again, perfectly good result, but not the best. The next, I did glue first, then the mica pigments, mixed that really well, but slowly, and then added my hot water. And that one actually worked way better than doing it the opposite, which is here. So the order in which I did this made a big difference on how much bubbles I got. And last but not least, look how few bubbles I have in there. There's almost nothing in there. This has been sitting for about half an hour. All of these have been sitting for about half an hour, but there's almost nothing in there. That would be beautiful for a pour. And this is the method I'm going to use for my Shelly Art Blooms technique probably next week. But again, all I did here was I did my dish water. Again, it's maybe 1 drop of dish soap per cup of water, no more, maybe even a little bit less, because our dish soap is watered down slightly, so we can put it in this cool container. So I did my water first, then added my mica powder, and then glue, and then I added a little bit more water because I wanted to get it the right consistency. So the best way I found, again, is very diluted dish soap water. Look, it's not making a lot of bubbles in here. There's very little dish soap in there, but that made the least amount of bubbles. So I poured these paints out a couple of hours ago, and here is how they look now for bubbles. That's the one that had the dish soap. It looks really good. And these 2 at the end look really good also, which, just as a reminder, were the flow aid and the glue, mica powder, and then hot water. There you have the explanation about how I did this. Now, if you're new to the channel and this was helpful, this is what we do every single week on Left Brain Artist. So if that's what you're looking for, paint that like button down below. Subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get notified as soon as my videos come out Saturday morning. Also, I think you would really like this video about cheap acrylic blooms, or this video that Google thinks you would enjoy.